stories from around the corner.
And around the country.
You're listening to All the Best.
Proudly supported by the Art Gallery of New South Wales.
You're listening to All the Best from FBI Radio 94.5. I'm Madhura Prakash. Before we get into this week's stories, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that I'm recording from stolen Gadigal land and pay my respect to Gadigal elders past and present, and also recognise that the area where FBI Radio is situated, Redfern, has long been a place of storytelling, strength, resistance and resilience for First Nations communities. You're listening to All the Best from FBI Radio 94.5. I'm Madhura Prakash. This week we're diving deep into the world of lost media. In particular, the mystery of Australia's most intriguing missing song. And you, yes you, just might be able to help us solve it. I'm so excited that we're sharing this with you all. It is such a cool story. And I was pumped to be joined in the studio here at FBI Radio by the caretakers of this great search, Lindsey and Strange Australian.
My name is Lindsey, but a lot of people online know me as Shonya. I am the original poster of the fun little tale we'll be talking about. And since then I've ended up finding myself becoming a bit of a volunteer archivist.
I'm Strange Australian. I'm a YouTuber, and I got interested in Chernya's story about the Chatswood song, and I've been trying to help where I can and think it's a fascinating story as well.
So you guys got connected through the lost media community. Could you tell me a little bit about what that actually is?
So lost media is sort of broadly about those things that can't be found in their complete form. But you also have like a parallel or subset of that called Lostwave, where you have songs whose name and artist just cannot be identified by any normal means.
I feel like we're kind of in an age where once you put something online, like it can never be lost. How does this kind of idea of lost media even exist?
Even today, things can still get taken down. There's series on Disney Plus and whatnot that they'll just decide for whatever reason, okay, we're taking that down. And you even look at things like Warner Brothers and they'll just take things off streaming. So I think as much as we like to think things once in the internet age and they're out there, they're permanent and everything, I don't think that's always the case, because vested interests in different companies and whatnot can decide to take something away, and it can be up to the average person to save that and preserve it if they want to watch it, or just for historical accuracy. I mean, it is treasure because you can find some really spectacular things out there if you dig far enough that you just would not expect.
So we're here today because of a mystery that the two of you are very involved in, the Chatswood Lost song. Could you very briefly tell me what that's all about?
It is simply a song of unknown origin that was first discovered in a VHS tape about the Chatswood Youth Centre from 1997.
What really hooked me with the song was that bass line. I feel like the bass line start to it was really what got me onto it, because it sounded both, it was very groovy, really catchy, but also it just sounded so familiar. Like, have you ever had like that weird deja vu where you've definitely had like come across something before? It definitely had that vibe as well. I thought to myself that it has to be like something more to it.
I guess I started thinking, what happened to the people behind this song? You know, was this just one thing they did and then they never did anything again? Or are they actually some people that got notoriety and, you know, do they know how much people have sort of been invested in trying to actually find them, really?
Yeah, So we are about to hear the audio story that Strange Australian produced about this mystery. Do you have any words to lead us in?
It was quite a thing to work on, and I'm pretty pleased with how it turned out. And I hope other people enjoy.
There was one op shop. I don't know the name of it, but all I know was that it was on the main street where the Newtown train station is.
In about December 2019, a Redditor named Chernyat and her sister decided to take a trip to Newtown. Chernyat was, and still is, a lost media enjoyer, so naturally she decided to browse Newtown's many op shops, hoping to find something special. She was on the hunt for a VHS tape, but she only found one.
I feel like sometimes when I tell people this, they think, oh, you're embellishing it. No, it was literally just one tape. And it was this one tape with the Little Rascals copy on it.
The case said it was a copy of The Little Rascals, but the tape she saw inside hinted at something else.
I decided to inspect it, and I noticed it just said Chatswood Youth * Mono. And I thought, nah, surely this can't be a home videotape, right? So I thought most likely they lost the original tape and they had like a copy of it just from like television broadcast. So I thought to myself, oh, look, if that's the case, that'll be pretty funny.
Chernyat decided to buy that tape. She didn't know it then, but she just discovered a time capsule and a musical mystery.
Look at...
Hi, guys!
I think of Chatswood.
Chatswood? Well, it's very much like Burwood.
I should be treated equally, and that we're all human. And
But you just gotta like do the work, you know, blah, 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 blah.
When she got home and watched the tape, Chernyat realised it was not a recording of the Little Rascals at all. It was a documentary. And as the label suggested, it was about the Chatswood Youth Centre, but from all the way back in 1997. When you do watch the documentary, you get to see students from Chatswood High and other schools in the surrounding suburbs, along with some of the youth centre staff. You've got John wearing glasses, and Harley with a beard and long hair, and an unnamed third worker in a green jacket. There's of course a bunch of teenage shenanigans on display in this video, and the students can come across as a bit crass at times, you might say. You have to remember they're teenagers, and it was in the 90s.
The Aussie larrikin characteristics and sort of the rough around the edges attitude. I love the students in the film that I featured there really relate to me. It felt to me like a bit of a connection, even though this was like a 25-year-old tape.
By the end, these youth centre students seem pretty likeable to me though. And if you're paying attention, you see that the youth workers care about the students under their guidance. You get a real sense of friendship and community amongst everyone you see. Overall, it's a stunning time capsule of the late 1990s. What really grabbed Chernyat though was the song, a post-punk or indie rock number that you hear at the video start, middle and end, that starts subtly and builds in energy. The song took hold of Chernyat and she felt compelled to identify it. But without any credits on the documentary, she did what you probably do. She went to the internet to find the song's name and the musicians behind it.
My first instinct was, I'll probably just like Shazam it and to see what it is. And yeah, to my surprise, it just wasn't able to be Shazammed.
Chernya's song search did not start well. Besides trying Shazam, she googled what she thought were the lyrics, which were tough to make out from the old tape, but that didn't get her far. Chernya realised that she could not solve this musical mystery by herself, and so she began posting about the song on multiple Reddit communities like r/Lostwave and r/Sydney, but they held no answers for her. But there were other people who saw her posts, the lurkers in the Lostwave community. The Lostwave lurkers formed a group to discuss and investigate the song on Discord and gave it different names like Woohoo and She Came On, based on some common lyric interpretations, and they also called it the Chatswood song. But just naming and listening to the song might not identify it. But the documentary it came from is filled with clues and people that could help solve the mystery. It's just a matter of finding them. We know the students attended schools in the Chatswood and Willoughby areas thanks to their conversations and the uniforms they wear. As for the youth workers, they do mention working for the local council. The Lostwave community thought that Harley or John might know something about the song since you see them both being interviewed by students. Perhaps one of them even came up with the idea in the first place. With the video's clues, Chernya and the Lostwave community on Discord went through Google, LinkedIn and Facebook, tried to find somebody, anybody from the video, and eventually Chernya found somebody, a former youth centre student. They couldn't identify the song but told Chernya a few new things about the documentary.
They were just completely fascinated as well, because they knew that the project happened, but they just never saw the tape. Then the same person also provided me contact with someone else who was in the video, who was one of the interviewers, and they informed to me as well, like they knew about the project, but yeah, it seems like they didn't say it directly, but they did mention that it just didn't get screened. It just seems like something that was worked on, was kind of completed and just silently forgotten afterwards. So they were very surprised that they were able to see it for the first time after nearly 25 years.
Chernya was told that this documentary was part of a workshop run by the youth centre, and one of the male staff members there thought it up. Unfortunately though, these students couldn't remember the staff member's name. While Chernya had some success finding students, the Lostwave community did their own searching and discovered some tragic news. Harley, one of the youth workers featured in the documentary, had passed away in a motorbike accident not long after the filming was complete. He was in his 40s. It's clear when you watch the video that Harley was well liked by the young people under his care, and his impact and memory still echo today. If you take a trip to Chatswood and visit the youth centre there, you can find a painted mural dedicated to him that's still intact. Harley was a true mentor and a friend. After hearing of Harley's passing, the search to identify the Chatswood Youth Unknown song didn't uncover anything new for a while, but the conversation around it didn't stop entirely either. The Discord tried to find John the youth worker without any real success, and while the search continued, YouTuber CW Schultz featured the song in 2 videos on his channel, and for a while that was about as far as the search for the Chatswood song went. But in 2024, things picked up again. That's when I first heard about the song on Reddit and decided to message Chernya to see if I could help. As a first step, I tried asking about the song and video again on local Chatswood and Willoughby Facebook groups, and eventually another former youth centre student responded with some comments that gave new clues and context to the famous documentary. As it turned out, the documentary was made to push back against some local newspaper articles that called Chatswood U's lawless thugs and criminals. That youth centre student couldn't remember which staff member came up with the idea, but they gave the names to some of the youth workers and suggested that finding them could help identify the song. Whoever's idea the video might have been, these Facebook comments gave me some new information to help with the search. I sent all of this and everything else about the Chatswood song and the documentary to the local library, and the information they returned to me helped identify some of those Chatswood youth workers from 1997 that could know more about the song. One former staff member I found said it's likely that the Chatswood song was made by some youth centre students as part of another workshop or another youth centre in Sydney that they collaborated with. That would make a lot of sense. The documentary was created by students. Why not the music too? A few weeks after finding one former staff member, I managed to find another one. Someone who the Lostwave community had been searching for years. John. John wasn't able to ID the song, but he did tell me that the video was likely part of an Austalia course run by a colleague, and that multiple youth bands played at the youth centre over the years. John also said it was quite a hit to see Harley in the video, knowing that he passed away not long after. After everything I've talked about here, you might ask, why bother? What's the point of trying to track down some song featured in an obscure student documentary from 1997? To me, it's not just about the mystery, it's about cultural continuity and doing all we can to prevent it from being lost. It's part of our shared story, our history.
History is the truth. That's what I like to say. And no matter how small or insignificant it is, if we preserve that truth, that gives us a bit of a reflection of who we are and what we can do in the future. And creativity is a bit of truth that I find that is very important about ourselves. Finding this tape was a blessing for me because this inspired me a lot with my creative flow. So I feel like that in and of itself, and local media, it's not something that usually gets covered that well anyways. And if we are able to allow for archiving to be done for a scene, for such a important scene for us, around here, especially in the Greater Sydney, I feel like it'll be very important to preserve that that creativity, especially for future generations to come.
It's been fascinating for me to be involved in this search and see how communities can come together for a shared goal. You've got the Lostwave community with its theories and resources and determination to find lost songs, as well as the Chatswood Youth Centre community for having one another's backs. I can't wait to see if and when the Chatswood Youth Unknown song will be identified, and I know I'm not the only one.
It'll be a monumental day, I'll tell you that one for free.
So, since first recording Strange Australians piece that everyone has heard, have there been any updates or developments in the story?
Yeah, there sure have. So the youth worker John that we managed to track down, he mentions Austalia, and we weren't really sure exactly what it was at first. And it turns out it was this whole thing where youths of the day in the city sort of area would be doing all these various creative arts under the guidance of youth workers and other industry professionals. And we've been sort of looking into that, and there was a particular album that was associated with that we were trying to track down.
It was actually another Redditor that helped to uncover it. It was an ArtStart funded CD from Newcastle called Smokestack, which came out in 98. So it was a little bit later in regards to the timeline of when the documentary was made, which was back in 97. So we can confirm that other places in New South Wales had CD orientated projects for youth and unsigned bands at the time. So whilst I was looking at web archives of Trove, which is the Library of New South Wales' website for web archiving and other pieces of digital media, we ended up stumbling on the ArtStart 97 website, the original one from 1997 in its full primitive HTML
quality.
We had real potato quality. And we were looking through the full set list and just scrolling on this infinite page. And we went to the Willoughby Council area, because that's where Chatswood is, obviously. And there, we managed to find the video surveillance project that the documentary was filmed under. And we got the confirmation as to the exact film dates and production dates for it as well. So we now know exactly that it was filmed in July and August of 1997. And that also helped us to discover a couple of other projects. Warringah, or formerly Warringah, now North Sydney Council, had the Northern Composure. This was actually their first year they did Northern Composure compilation CDs. And they had unsigned bands and youth under 24 that could share their tracks, one track per each. But Northern Composure, what made it surprising is that our current lead right now, or we actually got two current leads, so two of the bands on there, Bluebeard and Sodism, were actually part of a performance concert known as Shawshocked, specifically Shawshocked 98, which was funded by Youth Week, specifically the art ministry program for the state, and also had a co-collaboration with Willoughby Council, which had John, who was one of the youth workers, featured on the tape. There's a connection to it there, and we've been looking at some of the bands there, like the Merkin of Moses, Analog, the Beta Clam and all that type of stuff, but there's a whole list of them. We've been trying to contact the bands, and we are wanting to try and see if we can maybe contact the band members who may know something about it and could lead us to a 6 degrees of separation situation where if we get enough referrals, we might find the right person. And lastly, our last lead is actually Use. Yeah, I'm pointing at Use. FBI themselves, because during my library visits, I've been looking at Drum Media, which is actually where I've been finding all of this information at the moment. And since this was around 97, or 95 to 97, 98, during this time, we know that FBI, at the time, FBI Radio 96.9 was just a test broadcasting station trying to get its FM license. And because they've done a lot of recording of live concerts with local bands and getting demo tapes from local bands themselves, just want to see if maybe you can help out with the search and if you've got any old broadcasts from the time.
There's still a couple of youth workers and whatnot from that time that we haven't heard from or just haven't been able to speak to. So if you were a youth worker in the Northern Sydney area, especially at Chatswood Youth Centre, so some of you might have known John back in the day and lost touch or whatever, that's totally fine. But yeah, if that's you or if that's your dad or mum or whatever, we'd love to hear from you.
One last thing is that one of the moderators for the group that we're in with Lostwave, they put out a $50 US dollar bounty. So convert that, that's 72 Australian dollars. If you figure out the identity and get a high quality recording of the song, this particular moderator can contact you and provide you with that set bounty.
It really feels like, maybe this is a crude way of putting it, but you guys are like treasure hunters almost.
I feel like we definitely are more like archaeologists, in my opinion. I feel like, in my opinion, there's probably a bit of a qualm I like to share. I think a real treasure hunter are people who have lost media and they put it in private collections and never let anyone see it. I feel like that's a treasure hunter, in my opinion. But I definitely see the Venn diagram there.
Yes.
There is also a bit of a murky water when it comes to doing lost media searches and Lostwave, where if we're going to find content, a lot of the content is truthfully copyrighted, and in some cases, a lot of the copyright owners, even though they've never bothered to release the content, will be very adamant about taking stuff down and making it lost again if it's under a copyright restriction. So there is a bit of a moral ground or grey area when it comes to something that would be technically considered piracy, but is it piracy for the sake of proper preservation for history as well?
Yeah, and also I think just to sort of add on to that, a lot of the time when you do see these copyright notices, the whole nature of it is that people can't see it otherwise. And when they take it down, it's not because, they're planning on a release. They're just doing it because they can a lot of the time. And they see that as they own it. Even though they might not be the artists themselves, it's usually a company, and they'll just be like, zhunk, there it goes. There's a 5-minute pilot for the Wiggles show on the ABC. Supposedly, the Yellow Wiggle Greg has a copy of this, but he can't release it because of the ABC, because it's copyrighted by them and they technically own it, even though they were the ones, you see them on screen making the show.
Yeah. Wow.
I can honestly go on a complete rant about about our country's copyright system.
I love everything that we've learned so far.
Thank you. It's honestly, this has been such an amazing ride. It's taught me a lot about, I guess, not only my research skills, but most importantly about how distinctive Sydney is, because this is a very community-driven story, as you can definitely tell, and I just never realized how amazing the music scene is here in this great city of ours, and I really want to learn more about it. The truth of the matter is that you don't have to be like some college graduate to be doing archiving. Like any person could do archiving, and that's the fun of it, is that anyone could find history and be a part of that history. But then there's also the fact of being is that even though that's the case, the sad truth is that, our country doesn't really have a good track record when it comes to archiving our own media, and that's really saddening to me, honestly, because I feel like our pop culture is amazing. We have some of the craziest TV shows and films of all time, and some of the greatest ones of all time as well, and they just get silently forgotten about, and there's no one really there to kind of like give it the revival that it should have. And I feel like because of that communal accessibility to be a part of something like this with media preservation on a volunteer level, we could really make a lot of difference both in our personal community and nationwide to allow for our nation's history to be preserved, accessed, and inspire future generations to come.
So if people have some of these aforementioned contacts, how could they help you track down the song?
I have an official website for the search, the chatswoodsong.com, or it's a Webflow website, but yeah, you can check it out there. If you see posters, there's a QR code embedded for it as well. And there's also the r/Lostwave community subreddit on Reddit, and there's also a Fond My Mind Discord server, which is dedicated to Lostwave songs like this.
Cool. We'll definitely link the website about the song in our show notes so people can look that up.
You need to be a community to solve this kind of stuff, because it doesn't just happen in isolation where one person is able to solve and identify a song.
Today's episode was produced by Phoebe Adler-Ryan, featuring an audio documentary on the Chatswood Lost Tape by Strange Australian, with the support of Lindsey Vassallo. Hello, all the besters. A quick note for the end of the episode. First, we would love it if you could complete the quick survey in our show notes to help us shape All the Best for 2025. You can also support us by hitting subscribe or follow if you're listening to the podcast, or tuning in to the weekly broadcast on FBI Radio at 9:30 a.m. on Sunday, or around the community radio network. All the Best would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we make these stories, and pay our respects to elders past and present. All the Best is made at FBI Radio on Gadigal land, in association with SYN and 3RRR on Wurundjeri Woiwurrung and Boonwurrung lands, and 8CCC on Arunde and Warramungu lands. The All the Best editorial producer is Mel Bakewell, and Phoebe Adler-Ryan is our executive producer. Our social media producer is Isabella Lee, and our social media assistant is Seth Emmerich. Patrick McKenzie is our community coordinator, and Janae Madden is our content assistant. Shining Bird composed our theme music, and Annie Hamilton designed the artwork. We're heard across Australia on the Community Radio Network, and we're made possible by the Art Gallery of New South Wales and the Community Broadcasting Foundation. You can find our full archive of more than 500 episodes at allthebestradio.com. I'm Madhura Prakash. Thanks for listening.